Just getting the live stream started. So hi everyone, we're live here at Yetminster Slaughterhouse, bearing witness to sheep today. Hey, thanks David. Yeah, I see you're going live today as well. Must be pretty early for you. Thanks for joining the stream. Hey, thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate that. I've literally just got started. Yeah, I know it started a bit late, so I'll be on for about an hour and a half, I think. And yeah, so we are live at a slaughterhouse in Dorset, and we are bearing witness to sheep coming in on trailers today that are taken to slaughter. These sheep are about 4 to 6 months old. When they're killed, they will be essentially stunned or electrocuted as they go into this facility. And then they're strung up by their legs, and then they will have their throats sliced before they're killed. So we're here to essentially expose this cruelty that's happening to the animals. We're here to take videos of the trucks, the many trucks that will be coming in. There's smaller trailers, there's big trailers, so there's a whole variety of sizes and volume of sheep coming in. And unfortunately, they're trying to get the trucks in as quickly as possible, so we've got to be quite quick to actually capture the footage of the sheep coming in. And yeah, it's a really huge facility here. They'll go all the way down to the back into a holding bay, and then they'll sort of be processed along the facility, and then they'll come out on these large refrigeration trucks. So I can give you a quick video or view of where we are. So we're holding a vigil with Dorset Animal Save today. So we've got quite a few activists here, all bearing witness. And obviously we have the security. And yes, they put these pallets up, so they don't want activists looking in. So this site is a huge, huge site. I can try and show you over the top. But yeah, they don't want anyone seeing what's inside. You question if it's so hidden, but it's so normal. Why are they doing this? You've got the many security staff here. And obviously they put the gates up. They don't want any activists going in. I mean, ultimately we're here to be peaceful and respectful and yeah, not cause any alarm and distress. We're here for the animals at the end of the day, but yeah, they're very secretive and they want us gone as quickly as possible. So yeah, I've been to this slaughterhouse many, many times. Turn the camera back around. And yeah, sometimes you get 10 trucks come in, sometimes 5, sometimes 20. And yeah, we're just here to just expose that. I've got a picture of one from a recent vigil. So inside the trucks, this is what you'll be seeing. There's lots of lambs, all sort of grouped together, and especially in the summer, it gets really, really hot, and they're packed in really tightly. So yeah, can you fly drones here? So yes, we have flown drones here. We've got footage of the drones. They've put up some signs saying use of drones is prohibited, but actually this is not breaking any drone regulations. This is all legal fly zone. So yeah, we've sent drones up before, taking videos over the back of the site, and it shows where the sheep get unloaded onto the trainer, off of the trailers and into this big holding pen where you've almost got hundreds of sheep into like a small metal barn as such, where they're held for could be hours before they're processed through the site. And that's when they'll go through the processing of being killed, where they're stunned, and then they'll have their throats sliced open, and then they'll be taken or pretty much chopped up and put into refrigeration trucks. Whether they do a lot of the processing here or taken to other facilities, I'm not too sure, but either way they end up on these big refrigeration trucks, and they'll go to other warehouses and eventually end up in supermarkets and other hospitality sector. So yeah, we're here to just show exactly what's going on. Most people would never have seen a slaughterhouse before or stood outside one, and yeah, we're obviously here as there's quite a few activists around the country actually going live right now as part of, if you check out their channel, it's Mel and Steve, they're doing a live stream called Project Livestream, where there are lots of activists are going to different slaughterhouses around the country. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat. So yeah, this facility, they, unlike the chicken slaughterhouses where they would basically lower baby chickens, usually 42 days old, so 6 weeks old, they get lowered into CO2 gas chambers, and that's their method of killing. So they will stay in the crates that are on the trucks, they would lower them into a gas chamber, and that's when they're killed. Whereas a site like this, which is similar to how they slaughter cows, this is where they will be basically electrocuted either with a bolt gun or electric prongs that will stun the animal first, and then they will be strung up by their legs and have their throat sliced open. So yeah, if you have any questions about this slaughterhouse, please let us know, and obviously we're here to show you that you don't have to pay for this. You know, all these sheep that are coming in, all these baby lambs, similar to other slaughterhouses, all these, you know, baby cows, dairy cows, chickens, you don't need to pay for animals to come to a facility like this, to be lowered into CO2 gas chambers, or to be having their throats sliced and strung up by their legs. You don't have to pay for any of that. You can be vegan, you can live cruelty-free and not have to pay for these industries. So yeah, please do ask if you have any questions about being vegan, please drop them into the chat or message me separately on Instagram. You know, I'm more than happy to help. I've been vegan for 4.5 years. You know, without sort of knowing, being ignorant, was sort of paying for this without knowing, and I kind of wish that people had told me sooner exactly what we're paying towards and making that change much earlier in my life. So, you know, if you can do the same as early as possible, you're saving hundreds of animals' life just yourself by going vegan. So yeah, we're in a slaughterhouse in Dorset, and bearing witness to baby lambs, usually about 4 to 6 months old. You know, we've asked farmers often when they drop the trucks off how old their sheep is, and they sometimes say 4 months, sometimes 6 months, and they do look really, really young. And yeah, I've got a photo from a recent vigil just to show you what it might look like inside those trucks for the sheep. And then eventually they are taken to slaughter just minutes later. So we've also got a few other people going live at the moment and bearing witness to the animals. You know, we're here to be a presence to any cars that go past. We've also got a banner up in the corner there. So any cars that go past now know what this site is. Because often people will drive past and you would never think twice about what this place is. You know, it might look like a factory, a warehouse, a transport facility. You would have no idea really unless you knew that it was a slaughterhouse. There's the security, obviously. They won't let any activists through. The trucks that will come past, they'll move those metal gates out of the way straight away. And yeah, hundreds and hundreds of staff here. It's a very, very busy site. We've got placards up as well, all around, so any cars that go past, we'll be seeing them. Yes, we're obviously doing a vigil as part of Dorset Animal Save, so we've got lots of activists out with holding placards. Just move. So the truck moving, so just gonna get out of the way. It's been parked there all morning. So this will usually then take the refrigeration carriages, I guess you'd call them, and they would, yeah, take them away. So let's turn the camera back around. So that truck's going to go in now, and then pick up essentially the dead bodies, the dead pieces of the sheep that was just taken in and killed. See, I'm not too sure how much processing and packaging they do on this site. Obviously, they have obviously some, because they have all the refrigeration trucks. So whether they just transport the animals' bodies after they're killed, or if they do further processing and make them ready for supermarkets like others do. So at one in a slaughterhouse I went to, which was a chicken slaughterhouse, they actually had the supermarket retailers going into the slaughterhouse to pick up the chicken products essentially once they've been killed. So yeah, some slaughterhouses have more processing than others, and I think they do processing, obviously the killing, and then refrigeration trucks. But I don't often see the supermarket chains come directly to this site, so most likely the refrigeration trucks will go to a further warehouse for the final processing, and that's where the supermarkets will pick them up. So I've just seen a comment about soy farming. So 6 to 7% of soy is fed to humans, and the majority of the remaining percentage is all fed to animals. So animal agriculture is the leading cause for deforestation, soy produce. So yeah, humans consume a very small amount of soy products. So here's another refrigeration truck going in to take the dead bodies away. So if you care about soy, if you care about the Amazon rainforest, any of that, then that's a reason for being vegan, for not supporting the industry that consumes the most soy, which is fed as animal feed, and yeah, the leading cause of deforestation. So yeah, we're here at a slaughterhouse in Dorset, bearing witness to sheep being taken to slaughter at 4 to 6 months. Yeah, please put any genuine questions into the chat about, a slaughterhouse. Doesn't have to be about sheep, about what happens to animals. And yeah, any other questions about being vegan, like you don't have to pay for any of this. You don't have to support these industries that are enslaving animals and killing them as babies just for the sake of a meal when you don't need to have it. All of us here are all vegan today, that are here as activists. So we know that, you don't need to support this, and it's so easy to not be. So in terms of location, are you British? Yes, and this location is right at the south of England, so southwest. Yeah, it's a very good point. Yeah, vegan is cheaper too. So, there's a study on average of supermarket shops, if you do a vegan, mainly whole food, plant-based diet versus any other diet, that comes out at least 30% cheaper. So yeah, hundreds of staff all coming out. Maybe it's a break at the moment. Obviously, they all have various different jobs here. There's a huge site. They've got offices here. They've got obviously the kill floor workers. They've got security staff. But often these workers don't really have a choice in terms of these jobs. Some of them, it's It's low barrier to entry. I would imagine fairly good money for what it is, but the downside is that a lot of slaughterhouse workers will end up with mental health issues and PTSD. There's so many, that work there just for a couple of weeks and can't do it, and will have nightmares for weeks and if not years from everything they've seen on that kill floor. So this industry doesn't just affect the animals going inside, it affects the workers, the staff that have to see all the killing, to have to do the killing, be surrounded by blood all day, and that takes its toll. We need these places shut down. We don't need them to exist. Yeah, exactly. So they want the trucks to go in as quickly as possible. So when I asked the trucks if they would be able to stop, the security sort of said there's a limit on, or there's a more like targets how quickly they're going to get the trucks in. So the quicker they get them in, quicker their numbers go up. So they want to get them in as quickly as possible. So yeah, question about how you're able to build muscles without eating meat. I'm just curious since I don't eat chemicals. So I say firstly around protein and building muscle. So protein, helps with muscle growth and recovery. All protein comes from plants. So the reason that people eat animals and get protein from animals is because the animals have eaten those plants in the first place. So animals are just the middlemen, essentially, of consuming the plants. So if you think of, in the animal kingdom, the strongest, the largest, elephants, rhinos, they're all herbivores, so they eat plants. They get all their protein from plants. So we know that we can get proteins from plants, and we don't need to kill animals to get that. And then in terms of things like chemicals, you have, I don't know if you'd tell me questioning in terms of like the processing, like the ultra processed kind of thing that's been in the media a lot. But essentially, if you can get protein from like vegan meats, vegan alternatives, plant-based, plant-based chicken, plant-based whatever it is, or you can eat more whole foods, so beans, legumes, things like tofu, tempeh, seitan, really high densely protein-packed foods that aren't these sort of sorry, there's just a truck that's coming in. Let's make sure, getting it some video in case he reverses into me. Just moving out the way of the truck. I'll continue this in a second. Right, that's stopped again now. So yeah, I like the idea of plant alternatives. I use a lot actually. So yeah, exactly. It's like so many now, especially in the UK. I'm not sure where you're tuning in from, but you go to the supermarkets and you've got a whole fridge sections, frozen sections, shelf sections, all with plant-based products, whether it's the free from section, but you can get all of the same flavors, all the same foods now, but without the use of animals. So you can have, a vegan chicken curry, you could have a vegan burger, you've got sausages, mince, fish now, like you've got all the same foods without the killing of animals. So why would you not choose that? Why would you want to pay for animals to come to a plate like this? Why would you want them to be slaughtered when you can just buy the alternative? Just reading some comments. Yeah, if you have any questions about the slaughterhouse, about what happens to animals, farming, being vegan, please drop them in the chat. I'd be happy to address them. Yeah, hemp seeds, very, very high in protein as well. Good to sort of sprinkle on anything on top of, oats, smoothies. So yeah, I'd highly recommend you checking out documentaries for, whatever questions you might have, whether it is about health, for example. There's a really good documentary on Netflix called What the Health, and they will actually break down exactly what happens to your body after consuming animal products, whether it's meat, whether it's eggs, whether it's dairy, and you can learn a lot about the negative effects it's happening on your body, and showing that plant-based foods is better for you for a variety of reasons. And there's also a documentary called The Game Changers, which shows how athletes, you know, the top of their sport, are thriving on just eating plants. So you can look at, you know, some of the Olympic weightlifters are vegan. You know, Lewis Hamilton, top of Formula One, or at least was, again, vegan. Novak Djokovic, plant-based. So you've got all of these people performing at the top level of their sports, and they're not consuming any animals. Do you like almond milk? I mean, personally, I preferred soy milk, but actually now I'm on to oat milk, and in a powdered form. So even obviously in terms of the greenhouse gases, water use, land use for milks, obviously dairy is by far, it's 9 times greater for some factors of land use, water use, 3 times more greenhouse gas emissions. So across the board, dairy is by far the worst against the plant-based alternatives. So you have things like oat, you've got soy, you've got almond, you've got rice, and then other ones like pea, macadamia, hazelnut, so many milks. But at the moment I'm now drinking oat milk, and there's a brand called Overheard, so you can actually get oat milk powder. So, you know, far less, you know, cartons being bought, you don't have to carry it around with you can mix it up and make it anywhere. So yeah, highly recommend Overheard oat milk actually. It's just really convenient to use. So yeah, for anyone that's just tuned in, we are at a slaughterhouse in Dorset and bearing witness to the sheep that are coming in here to be slaughtered, slaughtered for meat. So these are lambs. They are 4 to 6 months old, and they are taken into this site. So they'll come around off of this road here, and yeah, they'll be taken through the gates past security as quickly as possible, and they'll go round to the back of this. It's hard to see from this view, but around the back of this site, which is absolutely massive. They come in on all sorts of size trailers. They sometimes come in on smaller grey trailers with maybe 20 well, 10 to 20 in them, or they'll be on very large, almost like double-decker trucks that will have potentially hundreds of sheep in just one truck. Yeah, I think I use soy. I used to have soy more, mainly. I like the taste, but it's probably because I was having the sweetened version, and also had a bit more protein in. But yeah, I get enough protein from my foods now, so I'm happy with oat milk. And for anyone that wants to know what happens to animals, go to a link called 3minutes.wtf, and you can see just 3 minutes of footage for yourself. You can see exactly what happens to animals in different sectors, whether it be cows, pigs, chickens. You can see exactly what happens through the phases of farming to slaughter to products, and just in 3 minutes it could potentially change your life. So go to 3minutes.wtf and you can see the truth for yourself. You don't have to, you know, listen to me talking about it. You can see it for yourself. So I'm just going to put a poll up. It'd be great if you can vote on it. So just curious of who's in the room at the moment. Yeah, it'd be great if you could vote on the poll. I'd like to address any questions that you might have if you're not vegan. Maybe you could put on the chat what the reason is that you're not. Is it because you don't really know what being vegan is? Yeah, whatever it might be, I'd be just curious to know why you're not at the moment. Are you trying? Is there anything you're concerned about, fascinated about, whatever it might be? So what's worse, killing an animal or preventing them from being born in the first place? So if we take the example and use it for humans, what would be more ethical? If we were to bring up human babies to then slaughter them at 6 months old, is that ethical? Is that, you know, is it right if we grew billions and billions of human babies just to slaughter them at 6 months old for a product that we don't need? Is that ethical, you know? We don't have to kill animals. Animals that are alive want to live their lives just like us. We don't need to send them into a slaughterhouse to be gassed to death or taken to a slaughterhouse like this one that will stun you and then slice you by your throat when you don't need to. We talk about the circle of life, yet these places aren't part of this circle of life. Supermarkets, you're not going out and eating, animals in the wild. You're going to a supermarket and buying foods off a shelf. It's so far different to what we think about the circle of life. It is the circle of death. Hey Jeremy, hey Jake, thanks for tuning in. So about the alternatives being imported for our land, sea, air. If you actually look at the greenhouse gas emissions, water use, land use, ocean acidification, all of that is caused primarily by animal agriculture, even if it is the plant-based sort of alternative products. And you look at transport accounts between 6 and 10% of the overall emissions of a product. So we're talking about 6 to 10% of that. The rest is all the way it's grown, the land used and the water used. So that's an argument for going for vegan options and plant-based options. There's a really good documentary, or two documentaries, one called Cowspiracy and one called Eating Your Way to Extinction. That goes exactly through all of the environmental impacts and shows you, the impact of plant foods versus animal foods, the way it's grown, the land used. So yeah, I'd highly recommend you taking a look at those two documentaries. That's Cowspiracy and Eating Your Way to Extinction. They're both free to watch. So yeah, there's quite a lot of non-vegans in the chat. So curious to know, is this the first time you're seeing, a vegan talking up about the animals? Have you seen stuff before? Have you seen any documentaries? Do you know any friends or family that are vegan? Yeah, be really curious to understand, your position and what intrigues you about this stream. Obviously here it's standing outside a slaughterhouse. How does that make you feel? Does it make you feel like you want to stop putting your money towards these baby lambs being killed? What other emotions do you have? And yeah, so I've been vegan for about 4.5 years now. Thriving, happy, healthy, knowing that I'm not now contributing to places like this, to industries like this, the slaughterhouses that are killing animals every single minute, every single day, all around the world, for the sake of a meal that we don't need to do. So just reading the comment about overseas. Right, so again, if we take things back, so all products, let's say, might be transported, whether it's by car, by ferry, by air. By air as well is actually far less than people think they're actually flown. All products would be transported. Great if you can have it locally, even better. But the emissions caused from the transport is only 6 to 10% of the overall emissions of that product. So when you compare something like a steak, a cow, the water has to be used for that, the land that has to be cleared, the animal feed, so things like soy products causing deforestation that are caused to get the soy products to then feed those animals, they're all accounting for about 80% of the CO2 of the product. So comparing that to plant foods where you just grow crops and take them directly versus clearing all the land, feeding the animals, raising the animals, using all that resources to then just get the same result of an end product, the plant-based product has significantly less. So there's multiple things I can quote here. So the study of showing that if the world went plant-based, we could reforest 75% of the arable land in the world. So imagine taking back 3/4 of the land in the world that's currently used for farming, slaughterhouses. We can take all of that land back to rewild and to grow crops. And also as an individual, you can reduce your carbon footprint by about 73 to 75% from going plant-based. So, you know, foods that might be transported, you know, all foods are transported, whether it's, you know, vegetables, whether it's animal products, but either way, that is a fraction of the emissions that has an impact on the planet. It's 6 to 10% of it.
Too much your body doesn't need.
But yes, you know, obviously we're here primarily talking about the animals. You know, people can choose plant-based products for if they're concerned about the environment, if they're concerned about their health, you know, that's great. But at the end of the day, we're here to speak up for the animals that are coming in on these slaughterhouse trucks and are being shot in the head, having their throat sliced, or being put into gas chambers that we don't need. Most important aspect of Earth's environment is a well-fed human being. So human beings can be well-fed by eating plants, and the animal agriculture is actually a leading cause of the Earth destruction, cause of the climate crisis, deforestation, water use, land use, ocean acidification, ocean dead zones. It all stems back to the leading cause being, in various of those sectors, being animal agriculture. I eat plants too, I'm an animal too. These are animals for eating. Animals are not here for us, they're not here for you. They're animals, you know, we're all the same. It's like if someone said, oh, you know, you're a human, oh, you're food to me, I'm gonna eat you. You know, it doesn't, what does that even mean? Like, we all want to live. We want to live as much as a cow wants to live, as much as a pig wants to live. They don't, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't like to be forced into a gas chamber for the sake of a meal when you don't need to. So yeah, in terms of the gassing of animals, so chickens in the UK are lowered into CO2 gas chambers as well, or that are electrocuted. So yeah, they'll be lowered in on crates, so they'll pack them in tightly, they'll be lowered down, and they'll be, sent into a gas chamber until they're all killed. Joey Carbstrong did a recent expose of this, so if you go onto Joey Carbstrong's YouTube, you can actually see a video that he's got footage of this. Bags under my eyes. I mean, yeah, that's probably because I've been on a long holiday with with a very lack of sleep. My iron levels are fine, thanks. I did a test recently and all my levels were optimal, so yeah, stupid comment. How's Laura doing?
Yeah,
doing all right.
I think she only had 6 when I last.
Okay, awesome.
I guess that's YouTube. Maybe it's not as much reach as TikTok. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one she's on. Yeah, luck of the draw sometimes. So yeah, just scrolling through some comments. So yeah, just going back to my comment about, claims about emissions. As I said, transportation accounts for 6 to 10% of the emissions of a food that's taken to product from growing to end. But in total, if you're looking at CO2 emissions as a whole, animal agriculture and the food industry is responsible for about 30 to 35% in total. Cool. So yeah, Cami, I've just added you as a moderator, if that helps. Just scrolling through some of the chats at the moment. So yeah, looking at the vote, so 90% aren't vegan. So yeah, what's your reason for being on the stream? Are you curious? Have you ever seen anything like this before? You know, what concerns do you have? Please feel free to drop them in the chat. 10% are vegan, that's brilliant, that's great. Thanks for tuning in. And maybe you haven't been outside a slaughterhouse either, and this is the first time you're seeing this. So I'm just going to close that poll now. So yeah, anyone that's just tuned in, I'll turn my camera around. So we're at a slaughterhouse here in Dorset, bearing witness to sheep coming in today. So these are baby lambs, they're 4 to 6 months old on average, and they'll be taken in on trucks. Some of them are quite large, some are quite small, and they'll be taken into this huge site. They'll be taken around the back to a holding pen where the animals are sort of kept, and then once they're ready for processing, they'll go through the facility. The way they're killed is that they are stunned first, so they either have a captive bolt gun to the head or they're electrocuted with prongs to the head to stun them, and then they will be strung up by their leg and have their throat sliced open. They'll then be put through the site into further processing, and they'll be sort of chopped up into smaller body parts, and they'll be taken away on these sort of refrigeration trucks. So something like that one that my camera's pointed at now, this is where they'll be put into and then taken to further warehouses, further processing facilities, and end up in sort of your supermarkets, your retailers, all your supermarkets, Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's, whatever it might be. So often these supermarket trucks will pull up at the slaughterhouses and they'll take the body parts away straight to their facilities. So I haven't been to a halal slaughterhouse myself yet, but obviously there are lots in the country. And yeah, Joey Carbstrong again has done an expose on halal slaughterhouses. So there's a truck going past, that coming in. This is where they'd often take a lot of the waste, the body parts of waste, the sewage waste. They all end up in these trucks that usually smell absolutely terrible. Security again, obviously they don't want any activists going through the barriers, and they want to get the trucks in as quickly as possible. So yeah, we're here for sheep today, Jake. So lambs that are 4 to 6 months old. Yeah, that will be having a bolt gun or electrocuted with prongs first, and then have their throat sliced open for various lamb products in the UK. Difference to an animal stuck in a mud pit being eaten alive by lions. So we're talking about animals that are bred into existence, grown on farms, 92 billion land animals globally, bred into existence, enslaved, and then sent to a slaughterhouse like this. And it's very different to any animal that is out in the wild. This is part of humans exploiting and using animals. That is essentially unnecessary. We don't need to do it. So the fact of the matter is we are breeding them and killing them in this relentless cycle that we don't need to do. That's so different to life in the wild. And if you're comparing it to lions, you can make the same comparison about other animals in the wild. What about herbivores in the wild? Rhinos or hippos, they eat plants, they don't eat other animals. So yeah, if there was 90% of the people on this live after the poll are non-vegans, what do you think about this stream so far? What do you think about the slaughterhouse that we're at today? What do you think about animals that are sent here at 4 to 6 months old? Yeah, people are naturally cruel, and you don't have to be a part of that. You can choose to remove yourself from the exploitation. Humans might always harm other humans and other animals, but you don't have to be a part of it. You don't have to pay for it. And that's what being vegan is. You're taking yourself aside and saying, I'm not supporting these industries anymore. I'm not going to pay for animals to be sent to slaughterhouses. And you as an individual can save up to 300 animals a year, just yourself, from going vegan. Think of all the animals that are not being killed on your behalf. So the group of 10 of us here today are all vegan, so that's 300 animals each. That's 3,000 animals that we're not paying to be bred and then killed, and that's the impact of just one person. when yeah, you can just eat plants instead. You can eat plant-based foods, you can grow crops in your own garden, whatever it might be. You can eat plant-based foods. You know, in your supermarkets now, there's a whole sections of them. It's so easy. You just have to go to the next aisle and you pick up the exact same foods. You don't miss out on anything. You can have the same flavors, the same products, and all you have to do is, yeah, just look to your left and right and look for a plant-based product, and then you're not supporting this industry. So yeah, what's the reason that you'd still want to send animals to a slaughterhouse when you can have the exact same meals that you would have usually? What's going on here? So yeah, I'm live at a slaughterhouse in Dorset. We're bearing witness to sheep that are coming in on trucks into the site, and these are lambs essentially that are 4 to 6 months old, so they're babies. I've got a photo. This is what the inside of a slaughterhouse truck looks like. So this is one of the lambs that have come in before. So these lambs are, yeah, on average 4 to 6 months old. They are taken into this site and they will be electrocuted or have a bolt gun to the head. They'll then be strung up by their legs and then have their throats sliced open. They'll then be taken away onto a refrigeration truck and taken to further processing and essentially chopped up into body parts that are then packaged up and taken to retailers, you know, your supermarkets, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda's, Morrison's, whatever it might be. This is the reality of what we're paying for, or as non-vegans essentially. So if you're not vegan, you might not know what you're paying for. So if you buy a lamb product, you know, whether it's a lamb chop, a kebab, whatever it might be, you're paying for animals to come in on these slaughterhouse trucks. You're paying for them to be killed as babies. And the reality is you don't need to. You know, there's 10 of us here today bearing witness, and none of us pay for this. You know, this is a video of the animals inside. Sorry if I wasn't clear. So no, we are against this industry. We are protesting it. We are vegans and we are not supporting slaughterhouses. We want them all shut down. Animals should not be exploited and killed, and we don't want to be a part of that. So we're here to raise awareness, to expose the trucks going in, put pressure on the facility and show exactly what happens to these animals when they go through. Because most people on this stream probably have never stood outside a slaughterhouse and seen animals go in on trucks. You see the fear on their faces as they go in, and we want to show that same thing to the public. Just scrolling through some of the comments. Saw a smooth feeder, I want to stop eating meat. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And it's so easy. Like, you can stop right now, as of now, you can stop that. You can stop supporting these industries. The next time you're going to go to the supermarket, you go to a different section. You don't go to the meat aisle, you go to the plant-based aisle. Buy whole food, plant-based foods, beans, legumes, pastas, rice, tofu, tempeh. And we have, you know, technology now like Google, ChatGPT. If you don't know what to eat or you need a recipe, you can just Google it. You know, have all the same meals you have, curries, burgers, sausages, whatever it might be. You just have a plant-based equivalent or a plant-based meal of the same. So you can have the same flavors, the same familiarity, the same routines. All you're doing is removing animals from your lifestyle. And that's from diet, and then you stop buying clothes that are also part of this industry. So like the leather industry or the wool industry or the fur industry, animals that are bred and killed for their skins and for their fur. You don't have to pay for that. You can just wear other clothes. You say, sorry, dude, those places will never be shut down. Earlier, I think this year, Farnborough Slaughterhouse was shut down, and that's just down the road. So yeah, that's not true, because they are shutting down, and the more pressure we can put on them, then the more places will shut down. And as demand changes, these places won't be able to be functioning anymore as a business. The more people that stop paying for these animal products means that the more of these places will shut down. what's just there again reading through the comments, what's too harsh? So you're saying you're vegetarian since birth, so what is it that you're finding too difficult? Yeah, you know, fruits, vegetables, beans. You can get all of the many healthy foods all from plant-based products, and they're often, yeah, cheaper, accessible from everywhere. You know, milk and cheese, you can just get plant-based equivalents. You can get oat milk, soy milk, coconut milk, macadamia milk, hazelnut milk, almond milk. There's so many milks that you get from the supermarket. So you don't need to buy cow's milk. And the same with cheeses. You know, try Cathedral City vegan cheese. Tastes the same, melts the same flavour, but without the harm to the animals. And yeah, I'd recommend you watching, is that Caillou Shivam? Watch Dairy is Scary. It's just a 5-minute video on YouTube, and it just shows you the process of how you get dairy products. It's just 5 minutes, so I'd highly recommend watching that. And yeah, and if you look at what's actually involved in or included in animal products, you know, they're fed antibiotics, you know, full of hormones, and you look at things like milk and cheese full of pus and blood. You know, there's limits of the amount of pus that can be included in a milk product. Yeah, watch Dominion. Yeah, watch Dominion. Watch The Land of Hope and Glory. Really good documentaries that shows you the reality of this place. And if you don't have, you know, an hour to spare on a documentary, if you have just 3 minutes, go to 3minutes.wtf, and it will give you an entire overview in just 3 minutes of exactly what happens to animals. You know, I'd highly recommend you going onto that site and watching it. That's 3minutes.wtf. So I'm just putting a Q&A in. Getting curious to hear your responses on this. Yeah, with the fear of the animal, absolutely. Like the animals that come in on these trucks, you can see the fear in their eyes. They're often trying to, you know, break free from the truck. And when they go inside the facility, all you can hear, especially with the cows, is this sort of deep groaning sound as they're sort of funneled through onto the kill floor. They know exactly what's going to happen. They can smell the animals around them, the blood around them, and yeah, they're completely fearful. And they, yeah, unfortunately, they aren't able to turn around, and it's the only way forward is for them to be killed. Yeah, I cannot imagine what it would be like to be in that animal's position. We've been eating meat, what are you going to do? There ain't no vegetables. You know, some people have been eating meat, some people haven't. I think it's a misconception about, you know, going back to the early humanity, of how much was actually eating meat. There's a study on the gladiators that show that they were primarily vegetarians and that they wouldn't consume any animal products prior to their fights. So, and even if that is the case, we know, we have the information that we don't need to eat animal products now, so why would we choose to? So yeah, feel free to respond to the poll. So yeah, for anyone that's just tuned in, I'll just explain again. So we are at a slaughterhouse in Dorset. We are bearing witness to the sheep that are coming in on slaughterhouse trucks. Over here they've put these pallets up that stop us from looking inside. They want to keep it so secretive and hidden of what goes on beyond these walls. And yeah, obviously they don't want any activists or any of the public seeing what happens to these animals. Yeah, this place is a huge site. It's got offices as well as obviously the slaughterhouse factories. They've got the kill floor, the processing place, the holding pens, and the areas where they're basically sent onto yeah, the refrigeration trucks. So I can try and show you slightly over the fence of what's going on behind. As I said, they put these pallets up so you can't really see too well. So yeah, we're bearing witness to sheep and, well, lambs that are 4 to 6 months old that are sent here to be killed. So yeah, we're part of Dorset Animal Save, and we've got quite a few activists out here today. There's more around the other side of this truck. And yeah, there's a few people live streaming as well. Yeah, and taking videos, explaining to the public exactly what's happening. So I've just seen a comment about currently live in Italy. What about individuals that live off agriculture and livestock? So you don't have to live off livestock, you don't have to live off animals, you know. You can eat whole food plant-based, things like, you know, fruits, vegetables, beans, easily accessible from all parts of the world. And you can access all of those foods. So I'm pretty sure the diet isn't just a piece of meat for breakfast and lunch and dinner. You'll have other foods as well. Yeah, just reading that comment about vegetarian to do with milk products. So if you don't know already, what happens, or the process of getting milk products, is cows are artificially inseminated. So a farmer will essentially insert most of his arm into the cow, and they will take the semen from a bull and they will impregnate the female cow. And then the mother will become pregnant, and once they give birth to their baby, the baby will be taken away from the mother. If they're male, they're most likely killed and shot or taken for the veal industry. And if they're female, they'll be separated. And once they're old enough, they'll go through the same cycle of being impregnated and having their babies taken away, because the mothers produce milk, and the milk intended for their child, for their young, but instead the milk is taken from the cow and packaged up and given to humans. So then once the dairy cow has produced or gone through a few cycles of impregnations and milk taken from them, they are then sent to a slaughterhouse. So often between 3 and 5 years old. So they're young, they can live to over 20, and they're taken at a fraction of their life. And this is the dairy industry. You know, the same reason that people become vegetarian, because they don't want animals to be killed. They just think they're taking a byproduct, but it's not true. These are products by design. So the dairy industry are cows that are impregnated, have their babies stolen and are killed, is the dairy industry, not the meat industry. But they are then, once they're killed, they're used for things like cheap meats. So if you're against animals being killed as a vegetarian, you would surely be against the dairy industry, as they're also killed and exploited for their milk and then slaughtered at 3 to 5 years old. Go protest to lions and sharks eating other animals. Again, lions and sharks you pick out, but you don't talk about rhinos and hippos, animals that eat plants only. So, and we're humans. We're not obligate carnivores. And we have the capacity to choose, and we're breeding animals into this industry. We're not living in the wild. So it's a complete, yeah, different comparison. So as I said, there's more activists around the corner of this truck. Yeah, there's about 10 of us here today, but also we're part of Mel and Steve's Project Livestream, which is just a truck coming in now. I'm not sure what this is. I think it's just a delivery of, yeah, I don't think it's animal related. So yeah, Mel and Steve have got multiple people going live right now all around the country. We've got people at different slaughterhouses, some at chicken slaughterhouses, some at cow slaughterhouses, some at sheep slaughterhouses, all doing the exact same thing. Reduce the amount of, it's not about how they do things, you've got to reduce the amount of pain. So, you know, we want to reduce any pain, any suffering, any exploitation, any use. And the way to do that is not to farm animals and kill them in the first place. We can just eat plants, leave animals alone. So yeah, and in Dorset, so southwest of the UK. Hunt or raise your own meat, pretty simple, or don't do that at all. Why would you need to hunt or raise your own meat when you can just eat plants, grow your own plants? You don't have to kill the life of a living being who wants to live. That's brilliant, Jake. Yeah, he said, I asked myself why I'm not vegan, decided to be vegan until I couldn't find that answer. I found that answer does not exist. So yeah, if you see what happens to animals and realize there is no ethical way to use an animal for our own consumption and benefit, and we don't need to do it, there's alternatives. We can just eat other foods. We eat fruits, vegetables, beans, legumes, plant-based foods. We don't need to kill animals for food or for clothing. Yeah, any other questions, please do drop them in the chat. I'm just scrolling through some comments at the moment. Yeah, so I just read a comment about production of crops. So the reason that obviously we use so much land at the moment because of the use for animals to be grown and crops to be bred, to be grown to then fed to the animals. So if we all went plant-based, we can reforest and restore up to 75% of arable farming in the world. So if we can rewild 3/4 of the earth, what we then have is more land that can be used for veganic farming, the use of further space, lack of removal of pesticides, and a more organic way of farming if we have more space. But because all the land is being used for animals, we are restricted, and things like pesticides has to be used in some situations. So comment about, because I like eating meat, so yeah, I mean, I think a lot of vegans will agree, like they don't stop eating meat because of taste. Like the taste of animals isn't the reason why people do or don't do things. So I think that taste, essentially, you can still get from plant-based products. So, you know, things like bacon or burgers, you get that same flavor now from just a plant-based equivalent. So, you know, we're not denying that animals didn't taste good, but you can now get that taste without the animal in the first place. So why would we kill an animal? We can get the exact same taste satisfaction without an animal being sent to a slaughterhouse. So yeah, I mean, I'm just reading RG's comment. Is your problem against the animal process? Finally keeping chickens occasionally. Yeah, so I mean, we are against the use and exploitation of animals in general, whether it be a huge factory farm producing millions of you know, chickens or pigs, whatever it might be, but also smaller family farms. If you're, you know, breeding animals just to kill them and eat their bodies, if you were in the animal's position, how would you feel? If you're in an animal's position, a small farm or a big farm, your reality of what's to come is the same. You're going to come to the same place. You're going to be in this same slaughterhouse and you're killed. So whether it's from a small farm or a big farm, you're going to be killed at the end of the day just for meat. See, Sebastian said you used to be a vegan. What happened and what made you go vegan in the first place? So I know there's a lot of comments and missed, so yeah, feel free to repost it if I haven't acknowledged your questions. See a comment about plastic packaging. Yeah, I mean, have a look at the Great Pacific garbage patch. That actually, most of that is all fishing plastics that's yeah, lining our oceans and destroying the oceans. And all the microplastics that the fish are eating often comes from discarded fishing nets and fishing equipment. Once you get the lion to stop eating the gazelle, I'll become vegan. Well, why? It's just funny, isn't it? So, you know, why do you always use the lion? Why not use a hippo? What about a rhino? You like using the lion. Lions are obligate carnivores. You're not an obligate carnivore. You don't have to eat meat. And just because of something that someone does in the wild, why does that have an impact on what choices you make as a human being? Just because someone does something, it doesn't mean that you have to do something else, you know? Just, there's so many other comparisons you can make about someone doing something, and that doesn't mean it's a justification for you to do the same thing. It's the food chain. Is it the food chain? Because I'm not sure about the food chain where you're breeding 92 billion land animals into their enslavement to then be sent to a slaughterhouse and then to a supermarket. Don't think that's part of our natural food chain. Yeah, the classic mobile phone arguments. I'm here to speak up for the animals at the end of the day, and you know, the excuses that people like to throw out and what about is and what about this. At the end of the day, animals are coming in here on slaughterhouse trucks to be bolt gunned to the head, to be strung up by their leg and have their throat sliced open, and you're just trying to talk about other stuff. Like, we are here to speak up for the animals. And if you want to throw out as 101 excuses, then feel free. But at the end of the day, if you're paying for these animals to be here, then I think you need to look in the mirror. Hey Jasmine, hey Chip. Thanks for tuning in. So there's an I am spirit, I am vegan, but sometimes eat eggs and a tiny bit of cheese, that's it. Firstly, if you don't know about the egg industry, if you know, chickens that are bred to produce dozens or thousands of times more than eggs than they probably would naturally do. The way they've been genetically modified over time, they produce way more eggs than they would in their natural life. And what happens is that they produce those eggs, and if they're male chicks, they end up, because they're not used to, or male chicks aren't able to produce eggs, they are useless to the industry. So male chicks, once they're born, are killed on their first day of birth. They'll be put onto a conveyor belt and sent into a macerator, like a big blender, to be killed, all for the sake of an egg. So you're paying for male chicks to die, essentially. And the same bit of cheese, you notice you're saying just a tiny bit of cheese. As I said before, cows are forcibly inseminated, forcibly impregnated. and then they'll have their babies taken from them. Again, if they're male, they're usually killed. And if they're females, they'll still be taken away from their mothers, and then the dairy cows will be killed after about 3 to 5 years once they're spent and known as no longer profitable for their industry. So, you know, eggs and a tiny bit of cheese, you're still paying for the killing of animals regardless, knowing that there is alternatives. So, you know, wherever you are in the world, if you're in the UK, you've got egg equivalents, you've got cheese equivalents, you can have the same flavour and not have to pay for the slaughter of animals. Promote veganism or protest against slaughterhouses, just pick one. Well, I'm doing both at the same time, so that works. And yeah, good point, Cami, yeah. Yeah, exactly, Jasmine. What about is Minute's finest? Oh, be back in 2 seconds. Cool, yeah, sorry, I'm back now. A few people having to leave. So yeah, apologies if I missed any of the comments and questions on here at the moment. Feel free to repost them. So yeah, just to show you what it looks like on the slaughterhouse trucks that come in. This is a picture of a sheep that's come in. So they're usually 4 to 6 months old. And yeah, they are electrocuted, so either with electrical prongs or they're stunned with a bolt gun. And then they're hung up by their leg and have their throat sliced open. These are just, you know, babies, six months old. And this is what essentially you're paying for if you're not vegan. These are poor, defenseless beings. They just want to live their lives just like us. Yeah, if I've missed any of your comments, please do drop them in again. There's been quite a few, so I'm just scrolling to the bottom now. Yeah, really good comment, Chip. You know, if you wouldn't force puppies and kittens into a slaughterhouse for an optional product, why force other baby animals? And yeah, a few great things, you know, you've touched on. You know, how would you feel if it was your pet dog or your pet cat that at a fraction of their life, you know, 6 months old and then being killed, taken to a slaughterhouse to be gassed or shot in the head? Same for, yeah, whatever other, you know, pet animals that you might have at the moment. And the fact, yeah, this is optional. We don't need to pay for animals to be sent to a slaughterhouse when you can pay for other products. You can remove yourself from buying animal products for food, for clothing, for entertainment. So comment, kids starving all over the country, and this is what you worry about. Well, you touched on a really interesting thing there, because if we're able to feed 92 billion land animals, yet struggle to feed 8 billion humans, there's something quite messed up about that system. And the fact that if we all swapped to a plant-based diet, we can rewild 75% of the arable farms or farmland on this earth. We could feed 8 billion humans with no problem. We feed 92 billion land animals with ease at the moment, you know. We're destroying forests just to, you know, get soy products just to feed the animals, when we could just grow and eat plant foods directly. So if you're worried about kids starving, you'd be vegan too. You're allergic to soy, so you can't do a vegan diet to give me my cow. You know, if that was a serious comment, then you know, there's plenty of things you could say about that. If you had a soy allergy, you can still be vegan and allergic to soy. Is that a truck coming in? So there's a refrigeration truck coming in now. So the animals that have already been taken to slaughter, they will be taken away on these refrigeration trucks. So once they're killed, they'll be chopped up into small body parts and taken away. There you go, fresh food logistics. This is Muller. And it's a Dutch vehicle as well. They've got a Dutch registration plate. You know, so potentially this, yeah. Interesting, I don't think I've ever seen a Dutch refrigeration truck come in here before. You can get all your vitamins and minerals from a plant-based diet, or just take a multivitamin supplement, which most people should do anyway, regardless of diets. As I said, most of us vegans have all done, you know, health checks, and we know we're thriving in all of the different indicators. None of us are lacking or deficient in anything. If anything, we're more healthy. What would you do with the animals if everyone became vegan today? So, you know, this is a classic thing that people say. As much as, you know, we'd love the whole world to go vegan overnight and the world to change, but gradually that's not going to happen. So what happens at the moment, obviously, we breed these animals into existence to meet the demand of the consumers. So if people stopped demanding these products, stop buying them, we'd stop breeding those animals into existence. So gradually over time, the volume would decrease and decrease and decrease, yeah, as time went on. So if you want to see some strong vegans, look up Patrick Baboumian. He's a world champion weightlifter. Yeah. Check him out, Patrick Baboumian. I think he's German. And also, if you want to watch a documentary called The Game Changers, they look at all vegan athletes, bodybuilders, NFL players, basketball players, and yeah, they will show you, you know, how much protein they get, how they train, and they can actually be, you know, stronger than their sort of meat-eating counterparts. So yeah, we're at a slaughterhouse here in Dorset. These places have usually been a lot busier. I think they unfortunately took a lot of the trucks in earlier this morning, about 6, 7 a.m. We arrived just after 9, but we've seen a truck come through already. And there's a couple of slaughterhouses around this area that also take a lot of slaughterhouse trucks in. And yeah, they take all around these areas cows and sheep who are, yeah, the sheep here are 4 to 6 months old, who are stunned and basically then strung up by their legs and have their throats sliced open. But the point is, like, we're here to show what happens to these animals and to say that you don't need to support these industries anymore. You can live vegan and not contribute to the suffering and exploitation of these animals. Hey Laura, thanks for being here today in your live stream. Yeah, I hope you had a successful one. see Dak Yates, but valid points. However, I thoroughly enjoy eating steak and other meat. So you can get your plant-based equivalents of those meats. You can get a vegan steak, you can get vegan chicken, you get vegan fish, vegan pork, vegan sausages. You can have all those same flavors, tastes, and textures without paying for the animals to be killed. So, you know, why would you want to pay for an animal to be shot in the head and have their throat sliced open when you can just eat something else? And it's as simple as that. It's an easy choice to make. I didn't see the first part of the question, but something about designer breed animals, animals that suffer because of us. Yeah, exactly. We know, at the end of the day, we as humans, unfortunately, are breeding animals into society for our own benefit, whether it be for food, for clothing, for designer pets. And the moral of the story is you don't need to do that. We can stop exploiting and using animals for our benefit. The easiest thing is just to leave animals alone. Love how you think that, you know, people in the chat don't have jobs, all right, you know, we as vegans don't have jobs. As nice as that would be, yeah, we all have jobs. We don't freeload off the state. We're still like an answer. There is no ethical consumption. Even your phone was produced through exploitation imagery. Much of it human. Why the double standard? The point is, we are trying to prevent as much as possible around exploitation of whatever it is. So the idea, though, that these are animals that don't have a voice and are suffering. There's 92 billion land animals that are slaughtered every year for a product that we don't need. And again, you're bringing up the mobile phones. Like, this is so relevant to what we're speaking. We're speaking up for animals sent to slaughterhouses for food, for clothing, for entertainment, and that are tested on. We don't need to pay for that. There is no double standard. Just because of one thing, you go, oh, just because there's exploitation there in the world, I'm going to carry on doing this. That's no excuse. We should stop and make choices that are the least exploitative as possible. As most people, you know, in this room might be not vegan, like, you can make a choice right now and stop contributing to exploitation just like that. Yeah, exactly, Jasmine. Yeah, fighting for animal rights and having a job are not mutually exclusive. We can do both. And yeah, thanks. Yeah, UTOPS, aka PJ. Yeah, exactly. Great definition. So veganism is a philosophy and a way of living which seeks to exclude as far as is possible and practical all forms of exploitation of cruelty to animals. And in, you know, most societies that we all live in, we have supermarkets, we have restaurants, and you'll just have the power of a choice of just picking something else up from a supermarket or choosing something else on a menu. And yeah, look it all up. You know, use Google, whatever it might be. Find plant-based alternatives, plant-based recipes. It's as easy as that. So something about alternatives, they're very expensive and do not offer close representation. I mean, in terms of like the close representation and the equivalents, there are so many now different brands that are always coming out to try and mimic the textures and tastes and flavors. But also after about 2 to 3 weeks, your taste buds do change. So if you eliminate meat products, you won't even notice the difference. Same with cheeses. But also, just because the taste is maybe, what, 10% different, 20% different, or slightly good, or slightly less good, is that a whole justification to kill the life of an animal, to murder an animal just because of a 10% difference of taste? And then also, yes, this is about the alternatives, but you don't have to eat meat alternatives. You can just eat whole food plant-based. You can eat beans, legumes, rice, lentils, whatever it might be, all these interesting ingredients full of flavor that you don't need to, you don't need to eat animals. And if you don't want to, you don't have to eat plant-based alternatives that sort of mimic it. Again, the lion comment. What about the hippo and rhino comments? You're not talking about them, are you? Hey, Jade. Yeah, exactly, Jasmine. Yeah, if you don't like them, and yeah, about cheaper too. Like, yeah, there's a study that on a supermarket shop of a meat eater versus a whole food plant-based, the supermarket shop was 30% cheaper on average. So yeah, it's cheaper for you, it's healthier for you, it's better in all angles, and the ultimate thing is the fact that animals aren't being taken to a slaughterhouse like this to be slaughtered for the sake of a meal. And for anyone who wants to look further into maybe what happens to animals, there's really good documentaries to watch. You know, you can watch Dominion, watch The Land of Hope and Glory. They're all free documentaries to watch. But even if you have just 3 minutes, go to a website called 3minutes.wtf, and you can watch exactly what happens to animals, you know, in your own time. It's just 3 minutes. If you can go onto this stream, then, you know, you probably have time to watch a 3-minute movie. And if you want to watch it and come back on and comment what you saw, then that would be great. That's 3minutes.wtf. I'd highly recommend going and watching it and see what you might see and learn. How do you justify the billions of animals that are killed to produce or protect crops grown? So this is an argument for veganism, that if we are feeding 92 billion land animals, we're clearing forests. Animal agriculture is the leading cause of deforestation, of land use, of water use, of ocean dead zones, of ocean acidification. All of this is caused by animal agriculture, and that involves any of the other animals that are being killed for that production. If we're feeding 92 billion land animals with crops, with animals that might be killed in terms of crop deaths, that is far greater than if we were to eat the products and the crops directly. So this is a justification of being vegan. We're reducing the harm, we're reducing the exploitation by eating crops directly than eating the animals that are being exploited. So yeah, if you have any questions about, you know, what happens to animals, you know, how old they are, whether it's sheep, cows, chickens, pigs, how they're killed, places like this, you know, slaughterhouses, if you have any questions about that, please drop them in the chat. And it's about being vegan, you know, happy to explain, you know, things, whatever questions or concerns you might have. I've been vegan for 4.5 years, so I've not been vegan all my life. You know, I used to pay for this, you know, without really knowing what you're paying towards in terms of when you're buying meat products from a shelf. But once you know, have seen a documentary or, you know, have heard someone talk about it, you can make that change today. You don't have to wait for a big moment for you to make a change. You can just be like, right, from now on, I'm going to be vegan and I'm going to stop paying for animals to be used and exploited and killed in places like this. And it's as simple as that. You don't need this grand gesture. You can think, okay, yeah, no, it is wrong to kill animals or to you know, to consume them. You're going to eat something else. You can make a change right now today. Yeah, thanks for the comment, Dak. Yeah, I guess your last sentence in there about letting individuals make their choice based on preference. So yeah, whilst it's true, you know, we as individuals, we have the power of that individual choice, and you know, it's down to the individuals to do that. But that's where it's so then easy, because we have that choice. We have the power to say, you know, if you have that choice of choosing a meat burger versus a meat burger versus a vegan burger, you have the choice of killing a cow or not killing a cow, and it's as simple as that. So yeah, at the end of the day, your individual choice, unfortunately, could have an impact on someone else's life, and that's where it doesn't quite become just an isolated individual choice if your choice affects someone else or something else. So if your choice affects the life of an animal, then it's not just your individual choice that it impacts. Again, on the comment about whataboutism, talking about trainers, trainers are vegan, made from plants. Yeah, exactly. All you know, try lots of different foods out. You know, when I why I went vegan. I feel like I've tried way more foods than I've ever had in my life. And yeah, you find foods you like and you don't like, just like with anything in life. You have, you know, your own taste preferences. Yeah, it's up to you, but I would say experiment, try new recipes, you know, look at Google, type in, you know, interesting vegan recipes, try new flavors, go down the aisles and pick up different tins of beans and you know, rices, legumes, whatever it might be. Try tofu, tempeh, and try different marinades on them. You can be really creative in your dishes, you know, healthy, high in protein, and not have to pay for the killing of an animal. Ginsters or pucker vegan sausage roll. Yeah, they are really good. Really good, those ones. Yeah, I mean, yeah, your comment's valid, you know, about buying local. If you can buy local, even better. But as I said, you know, earlier in the stream, the transport, you know, if you're concerned about the transport for whatever it might be, for, you know, the environmental reasons, that transport of a product accounts for only 6 to 10% of the emissions of a total product. So if you think for a lifespan of a product, whether it be an animal product or a plant-based product, they have the idea of you using land, using water, using feed, using different resources. Transport only accounts for 6 to 10% of the whole environmental impact of that product. So yes, buying local is better because you know, you might be doing slightly better on that 6 to 10%, but the rest of the product depends on what the product is. And this is where the difference of whether it's a crop, like a plant, versus an animal product, because the animal products contribute to far greater impact, regardless of where it is. Even if it's down the road locally, that still has far more impact than, you know, vegetables being transported from Europe inside, because of the land used again, the lands that's cleared, the deforestation, the water used, the feed used, all of that impact is far greater, depending on what the product is. So if it's an animal, it's going to be far greater. Exactly, Jasmine. So yeah, we have the opportunity to make the kind of choice every time we sit down to eat, and it's as simple as that. You know, when you go to a restaurant, you look at a menu, you've got, you know, various things on there, and you see things saying, you know, VE or VG, meaning vegan. You can just choose that option instead of a different one. Simple as that. You can, so not becoming vegan, I like my alcohol too much. You can still drink alcohol and be vegan. Just, you know, check which types of alcohol you're drinking. Often some wines and some beers are filtered using isinglass, which is essentially a fish bladder that filters out the alcohol, but not all of them do. There's a website called Barnivore. If you put, you know, your favorite beers or wines into Barnivore, it will tell you if they're vegan or not. So yeah, if you've got any other questions about, you know, being vegan, any concerns, you know, what's stopping you now from making a change? What's stopping you from making a more compassionate choice? Because that's all it is at the end of the day, was we're deciding to be kind to animals, to be compassionate to animals, instead of paying for them to be exploited and sent to a slaughterhouse like this one. So yeah, I'm just going to show you, because there's not been any trucks in a little while. Again, just these are the sheep that are coming in on the trailers into the slaughterhouse. These are the victims of the choices that people pay for. You know, if you buy lamb products or sheep products, this is a result of, yeah, what our money is going towards. But you don't have to support it. These animals don't have to be sent here at 4 to 6 months old to be electrocuted and then killed. Some more videos here. They're all packed tightly into these crates. And these are the victims. And you don't have to pay for that. That's it. You can say from now on, I don't want animals to have to suffer for me. I don't want a cow to be shot in the head. I don't want chickens to be put into gas chambers. I don't want pigs at 6 months to be lowered into gas chambers for them to burn from their insides, for their eyes to burn, for their lungs to burn, to be killed. You don't have to pay for any of that. You can just eat different things. You can eat plant-based foods. You can wear different clothes. So what's stopping you? Why would you not want to become vegan after knowing what you know? So again, for anyone that's just come in, I'm just going to do another quick pan around. So we're at a slaughterhouse in Dorset, and we're bearing witness to sheep that are coming in on trailers. So these sheep are 5 months old on average, so 4 to 6 months old. They'll come through on trucks. They'll go through the security gates, and they'll end up on these refrigeration trucks. It's a huge site and facilities here. And they'll be lowered, taken into the facilities, and the sheep are electrocuted or electrically stunned using prongs or a bolt gun to the head, and then they will hang them up by their legs and slice their throats open. They'll then be sent further down the factory, and they'll be essentially chopped up into small body parts and taken away on refrigeration trucks. I'm not sure, yeah, Rodney, are they eating animals near where this video is taken? I mean, I would imagine a lot of the staff are all eating animal products at the site of where they're killed. So yeah, you're talking about a question there about, but it's my choice. Well, there's the issue with it being your choice, that you're right in that you do have a choice. But the issue is, does your choice have a victim? Does your choice have an impact that affects someone else? So your choice that is an individual choice, does your choice involve the killing of an animal? Does your choice mean that, yeah, you're paying for an animal to come to a slaughterhouse and be killed? And the issue there is, if there's a victim involved in your choice, then it's not just a personal choice. I don't understand why people only feel empathy towards animals. What about wheat, pumpkins, apples? Well, the difference is some are sentient beings with pain receptors, central nervous system, the capacity to feel pain and suffering, and some are just plants that don't feel any of that. Yeah, if my camera's flipped, so this is Animal Save movement. So we're part of an Animal Save chapter, so Dorset Animal Save, which is a group of chapters all around the world that go to slaughterhouses and sort of bear witness to the animals coming in on trucks, and they're taking footage of the animals going in and bear witness peacefully, respectfully, and just exposing the reality of what happens to these animals. So I might end the stream shortly, but happy to stay on for some more questions if you've got any. Again, you know, we're here, been exposing the sheep today, and you know, if you have any questions about being vegan, please drop them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. And you know, remembering that these are the victims. If you're not vegan, this is who you're paying to be killed in a slaughterhouse here. And you know, if you were here looking them in the eyes, how would you feel? You know, would you kill them yourself? Would you be fine with that? So what do you think about eating meat from animals that have lived a good life and have been slaughtered painlessly? Firstly, how do you slaughter someone painlessly? And secondly, just because they've had a good life doesn't mean you should take the life away from them. So yeah, if you want to know more, you've got my YouTube channel, my Instagram at alex.activism. Please, yeah, feel free to drop me a message, you know, if you have any questions, happy to answer them. And yeah, we'll probably be packing up now as a group. So we'll be taking some photos, and yeah, please stay connected on and subscribe, and yeah, come and see future lives. I've done quite a few lives already at different slaughterhouses, so yeah, please subscribe to my YouTube, alex.activism, and yeah, you can follow me on Instagram as well at alex.activism. But thank you all for joining. It's been a good debate, and some good comments and questions in there, and thanks, Trendsetter. See you on the next one. Yeah, drop me any questions, and see you all soon. Thank you very much, and be vegan.